Hey everybody, Carm Capriotto, your host here for another monthly camp, the coalition of automotive management professionals we call ourselves, or the team the coaches call themselves camp. It's a professional organization of coaches, and these auto shop coaches love to have open discussions every month, and they have so graciously allowed me to host it every month as they talk about trends that are going on in the industry. I'm with Maryann Croce from smallbizvantage.com. Hello, Maryann.
Hi, glad to be here.
She's also owner with her husband Tony of Croce's Transmissions in Norwalk, Connecticut. And Bill Haas from Haas Performance Consulting is here, haasperformanceconsulting.com. Bill, what can we give away your email?
Sure, absolutely.
Bill H 1317 at Gmail. Hey, good to have you all here. Let's jump into something kind of maybe riveting, maybe controversial. I don't know. What about free inspections, Bill?
Free inspections, yeah. I kind of have made that something that I think I bring it up a lot, and I bring it up with shop owners all the time. I bring it up in conferences when I'm making presentations. And it doesn't set well with a lot of people, unfortunately. But I've tried to figure out how we got to this point in our industry. And when I think about this, for today's purposes, let's think specifically about digital vehicle inspections. And here's my issue. It's like we've gotten to a point in the industry where we all believe it's a very valuable thing that we provide, a service we provide to our customers. And it's a great way to communicate and make customers aware of potential any problems their vehicles may be, having in the near future. So we use a technology to do it, but just about everybody today has gone away from paper and gone to some software, which makes it a phenomenal tool, right? We ask our technicians to do it, and in most instances, the technicians are going to get paid for doing it. Very seldom do we find that the technicians are doing that without being compensated for it. So we look at a lot of shops and they go, well, we're going to flag the technician time, but we're going to do it as a sort of a gratis, complimentary, courtesy kind of a thing to the customer. Oh, and we're going to hope that we sell some work. I look at this and I think about the incredible value that we're providing for the expertise of the people we have doing this service. Then we have the additional incredible expertise of our front counter people that will help guide people through the process of prioritizing what should be done or budgeting for the repairs and all this kind of thing. So there's a lot involved already, and yet it generates no revenue. It's something that we do, and we just have accepted the fact as an industry that this is a good thing to do, and somehow we devalue it to the point of saying, but we don't expect anybody to pay us for it.
Bill,
So
what about that good old 300% rule?
I hate the 300% rule. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. Here's the problem. I don't believe that every car that comes in your shop needs to be inspected to the point of having the comprehensive type of inspection that we're providing.
Mm-hmm.
Most cars do, but I don't believe they all do. I believe that type of comprehensive inspection, I would much prefer that the shop presented that to the consumer as an annual service that needs to be performed for your vehicle. So if I have a customer that visits my facility 3 times a year, once a year, I am going to sell them an annual inspection of their vehicle. And they're going to pay me for it. And they're going to see the value in the service that we're providing. Now, here's the thing. The 300% rule basically is every car gets inspected. We write estimates for all the work that we find. And then we send the information to the customer. We ask for the sale for all those things. That's the 300% rule, right? What's wrong with, I don't have to inspect that car every time it comes in. I do that very comprehensive, more in-depth, once a year annual type inspection.
Yeah.
I can get paid for
it. Bill, what are you people that are doing this charge for? What's the price approximately?
Depends upon the shop.
Okay.
Sometimes it's, I would say the range right now in our experience can be anything from about $39.95 to about $89.95. To me, it's figuring out how much time are we going to spend to do this. So if we're going to flag the technician half an hour and our labor rate's, $180, what should we get for it?
Exactly.
Just do
right.
the math.
I can't get someone to show up on my property to look at my HVAC or anything without saying, listen, when we come, there's going to be a minimum service charge that I'm going to have to pay. Yeah. And I recently, my house is 30 years old. We've had a couple of issues. It just happens. Things get old, right? I got a septic thing. Listen, just to come on the property, if you want us to flush out and do what we have to do, this is the price X. If we find something more, it's going to be there. I authorized it.
Well, here's the thing. There's a couple components to this that I think are worth mentioning to help people understand where some of this comes from. It's not like Bill's an old man now and he's just gone crazy. He's off his rocker. Okay.
Maryann, what do you think?
Well, I agree with.
No, is Bill a crazy man and off his rocker?
No, he's not. No, not at all. And what he's saying has a lot of merit because every vehicle that comes into a shop doesn't need that intense type of inspection. But I do believe that there's nuances depending on what you're doing, and the DVI is a tool. That's what it is. It's a tool. It's a tool for presenting to your customer, to your client. And there's a lot of people out there that are very visual. So when DVIs came into place, that was a great tool for those people that are very visual to see that and have it connect. But I do believe that there aren't enough shops out there that are charging for the testing that they do on the vehicle, that there's a lot that they're giving away, and what they're giving away has so much value, so much education, so much training, and the tools, right? The equipment that a shop has to pay for that. So I do believe that people should be charging for that.
Here's the thing, and I'm really glad you brought up the charging aspect of it, because when you start to look at where the time goes in a shop, and when we look at production and we go, this technician was at work for 8 hours today, and they build out 4.5 hours. Is that acceptable? No, probably not. Right? We've got to do better than that. So you've got to start looking then and go, well, if he billed out 4.5 hours and the 8 hours that he was here, what did he do with the rest of that time? And why couldn't we get, this is what I hate about shops. When you talk to the shop about production or the lack of production, the owner immediately says, well, Bill, everybody's busy. Well, sure they are. I know people that are very good at looking busy without doing much, right? You can't confuse activity for accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you look at this and you say the 300% rule says every car is going to get inspected. Let's just use a simple example. I have a technician that works on 3 cars a day. And I flag that technician 3/10 for every inspection that he does. That means that every day there's an hour's worth of work that we are not going to get paid for every day. That's 5 hours a week. Think about it. Now look at it. How many hours per month? How many hours for the year? How many? That's all non-revenue generating work. Stop it. Stop.
I agree.
This is the thing. When we look at production, what I preach is stop doing what you don't get paid for. You start with this. Figure out what you're not getting paid for. And then you have a choice. Start getting paid for it or stop doing it. It's one or the other. When you stop doing the things you're not getting paid for, you will have more time to do the things you do get paid for. It's a win-win. You can't lose.
It's like found hours. It's found time.
But you got to stop giving away this hour a day per technician. And in some shops, an hour would be little, because if I got a shop where this guy's just doing oil changes and tire rotations and inspecting every car, he might do 5 or 6.
Hey, Bill, let me throw an idea at you, because I'm listening intently and I'm really jumping in the deep end of the pool with you as far as conceptually. And I'm saying, how could I make this work? I'm a shop owner listening to this. Well, if I could bill one safety inspection a year, just one, and I don't know what the percentage is of everyone who says, hey, do all the work you found. You're right. We're keeping the car. This is right. But if not, it ends up becoming delayed work. We're pushing it off. So if the vehicle comes in 2.5 to 3 times a year, maybe just twice, depending on mileage, then the opportunity not to do another DVI, but to work off the previous one and getting that work done, to your point, getting paid for the work that we're doing. And in fact, a good CRM system and a dialogue with the customer could set up the work you need to do to get paid for.
And those are the other tools that we have, right?
Exactly.
Those are the other tools that make all of this so easy to do. And here's the other thing. When you look at, there are shops that have customers that never buy anything. You can look at the service history for a vehicle and you can go, well, we told this customer they needed tires. 4 visits later, they didn't buy. Oh, wait, this car now has new tires on it, but they didn't buy tires here. Oh, wait. And the next service visit, we did our inspection and we told them they needed these things, but they didn't buy those things. Why do I continue to invest our expertise in that particular person's customer when they have clearly demonstrated they only come here for a particular service and they're not going to maintain the car? They're not going to buy the things we're selling. This is what we're into. We're in the business of helping people maintain their cars so that it is an investment that works for them long term. And yet there's people that continue to come to us, and it's like, so if that customer is coming, once I know they're not doing DVIs, stop doing the DVI. It's interesting because once you make that transition to selling the inspection, and they say, no, I'm not interested. Good. It's off the table. I don't have to do it. They are not even interested in it. Now, the other piece of this that I think is important is just because you've now gone to selling an annual inspection doesn't mean that when the car's in the service bay, you put blinders on and ignore everything.
Right.
If this car's in for service and it's up in the air and I see that there's a torn CV boot, I'm making a note that there's a torn. I can do that without doing a DVI. I don't have to do a DVI to find that torn CV boot.
To your point, Tracy had her car in for service and her oil pan was leaking. And she didn't have a DVI, but
they made her aware of it.
It had to be brought up. It's truly a safety issue for the entire engine.
Well, here's the thing. People expect it. That's the thing. The consumer today has an expectation when their car's been in the shop, whether you do DVIs, don't do DVIs, whether you sell them or do them free, none of that matters. But the consumer has an expectation that if my car was in the shop, if it needed anything, they would have told me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's an expectation.
It is, but there are some shops that are just doing the job you came in for. And again, they need an awful lot of help to turn their corners there.
Yes.
I think one of the other kind of a bottleneck, or where some owners get a little bit confused, is you brought this up when you were talking about productivity, Bill. They get there's a big difference between efficiency and productivity.
Yes.
So if somebody is working in your shop for 8 hours, and let's say it's a technician, and you can sell 8 billable hours, those are hours that you can sell. Think of them just the same way you have a part on a shelf. Think of those 8 hours are in your inventory on the shelf, and you can sell those. Productivity means they are actually working and doing work that would be billed hours. That's productivity.
Correct.
When they're not, when they're only producing 4 hours or 4.5, like the example you said, what are they doing with those other hours? Where are they going? Is it something that it is in the tech's wheelhouse? Is it something at the front counter that's a bottleneck for the technician? What is it? So that's productivity. We have to make sure that they are able to do the work that they came in to do each day. Efficiency is if a technician is given a job and that job is being billed out at 4 hours, but that tech has gotten really proficient and they can do that job in 3.5 or say 3 hours. Now they're very efficient. Their efficiency goes up.
And you know what I love about efficient people? Efficient people are more productive.
Mm-hmm.
It's I don't even have to spend a lot of time measuring people's efficiencies. I need to make sure they have the skill sets. I need to make sure they get the training. I need to make sure they have the tools to do the job.
The
and
resources,
the
right?
will
Exactly.
come. And
Mhm.
efficient people will be more productive.
Yes, they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Guys, Matt Foslow recently did an episode called Just Be Honest. It was his episode 138, and he talked a little bit about this. But the whole idea of his episode was, so you want to make more money? Oh, okay. You hear all these numbers being batted around. And so, well, if he can make it down there, I can sit down with my owner and make it here. And then what Matt did is he went in behind the scenes. Have you sat and talked to your owner? Have you sat and talked to your technician? There's efficiency, there's productivity. And he brought that whole idea up that if the shop can't afford it, well, then he's got an issue. You need to understand it and help him with it. And if the owner doesn't have enough money to pay you this kind of rate and he really wants to, you need to step to the middle with him. And I think it's an episode that I almost want to do, Maryann and Bill, and I want to call it, have you talked to your owner technician lately? Have you sat down and had a talk?
Well, and I think that's a really good point, right? Because there's the whole performance review aspect of it. But I think what you're alluding to is different than a performance review. Just sit down and have a conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
How about, hey, here, grab a Coke, grab a coffee, grab a water. Come on, let's sit down for 10 minutes and let's just talk. Okay. The whole thing on the production piece of this is there's a tool that we have for shops that we have found really valuable when it comes to production. And that is, we've created a weekly production meeting agenda. And what we ask the shops to do is every Friday after lunch, as soon as the techs have returned from lunch, all the techs get together. Techs only. No owners, no service advisors. The technicians to get together, and somebody leads the meeting. Shop manager, shop foreman, whoever, whatever it looks like in that hierarchy, and they run the meeting based off that agenda, and they take the notes and they identify the things that have happened that week that are affecting their ability to be more productive. Is it got to do with parts? Is it got to do with work authorizations? Is it got to do with tools, resources? 10 minutes it takes to do that meeting. Somebody makes the notes and it goes to the owner. Guess what the owner now has? Something
Blueprint.
he can work on to
Yeah.
start fixing problems.
Yeah, he's got a blueprint. And in
I
fact,
don't want the advisors there
yeah,
because I don't want them making excuses, or they call them reasons, making excuses for coming up against what the techs are identifying for us. These are the people we're asking to do the work. These are the people we're telling part of your compensation, hopefully if they're doing it right, part of their compensation is tied to the amount of work that they do. Help them, give them the opportunity to have that conversation and give us the information we need so we can go fix the problems.
Yeah. That's valuable insight that an owner can use.
Yeah.
Maryann, I got to ask you a question about lean to become more efficient. We've done shows on this, and there's an interesting discussion just brewing around. Are the toolboxes in the right places? Where are the tools with the battery chargers? Where is the functionality of the footprint of this facility? And how quick is the access to the tools that I need to get the job done? You could look at those seconds, to your point, Bill, an hour a day, 10 seconds an hour, it all adds up and it allows you to be more efficient.
Yeah, absolutely.
You guys do that at Croce's Transmissions?
Yeah, we do have things in certain places. Everything has a place, right? And this way you're not spending time looking for stuff. And the systems, the procedures that you have in place are so important. They're really vital. I think that SOPs are key, because this way it keeps everybody on the same page. There's consistency in what you're doing. It's a great training tool for somebody who's coming in. And if you do them right, you can have continuous improvement because you can review them.
Yeah.
You can actually review them. And I have like 5 steps for, writing up an SOP. And my biggest thing is, because when you talk about these SOPs with shop owners, like this dread comes over their face, like, oh my gosh, they're so daunting, but they don't have to be. It's 5 simple steps. It really is. And there's so many tools that you could use. But yeah.
You know what I like? I like Bill's idea of that technician huddle, Bill. And part of that could be, hey, you need to evaluate if someone found a quicker, better, faster way to an SOP that we have. We need to talk about it.
Well, so those kinds of things are in the agenda. Okay. So it's not just all that. There's also what training have you done this week? So that's another place where we can capture, so-and-so did a webinar, so-and-so did an online course, or so-and-so went to a NAPA
class,
BD, business development group thing, whatever, or a technical training. We also, one of the agenda items is there any piece of equipment that needs maintenance or repair? Don't wait till the end of the cord falls off and nobody can plug it in the wall anymore. It's like, hey, the cord's frayed. That needs to be taken care of. So we try to capture a lot of that as well in there, but it's just, real quick.
The good point of what you're saying, Bill, we do that weekly, like updates with the meetings that we do have, like about equipment or anything like that. Technology is everybody's, if their laptop isn't working or tablet or whatever, bring it to our attention. But I love what you're saying about the technicians doing that alone on on their own meeting, because they're the people that are doing the actual work on the vehicles. So they know, they're the first ones to know if something needs to be updated, or, the other thing that they do is what technicians are very good at is they can self-assess and say, here are my strengths. Here's what I really love to do. And here's what I think I need, an area that I need more help in. This is the kind of training that I would love to go to. All right. You have somebody that's already on board. So those insights that you're talking about are very, very valuable to a shop owner.
One of
You know,
the
it's-
things we learned when we first started doing this was we created the agenda, and of course it took a little while to develop that and get it, because we were wanted to make sure that we captured information that was going to be valuable. Too, we wanted to do it quickly. This had to happen in 10 minutes or less. We found out that if the meeting was 20 minutes long, half of the meeting was wasted. They were just, the other thing we did when we first started, we was like, this was going to be the Monday morning meeting. The techs were going to get together. Well, guess what we found out? They had weekend brain. The stuff that was happening last week didn't mean anything the following Monday, right? So that's where we said, oh, that's not working. So how do we do this? So that's when we moved it to Friday after lunch.
brilliant.
We've got to capture this before they leave for the weekend, because this happened to me Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday, and it's still relevant. It's still fresh. I'm still dealing with some of the pain, right?
Yeah, it's a brilliant move, brilliant idea. And of course, it probably came over time when you realized that you weren't getting the kind of input you wanted on Mondays. And if I'm a shop listening to this, I've never had a coach. I really don't have a peer and a mentor group. God, Bill, you're forcing me to be a professional businessman.
You'll also make money like a professional businessman.
See, that's a great answer. Thank you. Because that's the think here is like, wait a minute, I'm having meetings for my guys, letting them run it without me in it. They may say something about me. Good.
Well, see, Carm, here's the thing. I mean, we kicked this off with this whole thing about the free inspections and the DVI thing and all that. But what drove that? What drove that was looking at productivity numbers. What drove that was looking at effective labor rates. What drove that was using our production tool that allows us to look at the hours that are being flagged by the technician and looking at the value of the unsold time. Okay. I just did this for a shop just this week. A shop with 2 technicians. One technician, for their unsold flagged hours, we're in the middle of June. One technician was at $22,000. The other technician was at $29,000.
Whoa.
Now, here's my question. I'm going to make this so easy. What if I just had half of that money? See, I'm not greedy. I don't want the 22 and the 29. I'm saying, hey, let's just do something and capture half of that money. Where would I be at
small
in this
steps?
business
Take
today?
small steps. Yeah.
Right. And where would I be in this business today if I just had captured half of that?
Yeah, instead of 31, give me 15.
Well, you know what Bill's making me think of, which really ties into this, and what you had said too, Carm, about owners, like, okay, how am I going to do this? It really makes me think about really an owner in a shop really owning that owner role, because a lot of them have their hands in so many different things. And Bill brought up such a good point about letting your team have that meeting without you. Right. And that is key, a key part of owning your owner role. A lot of times owners really don't understand what their role is. They think, well, I do everything. My hands are in every part of the business. And why is it so hard for them to step away? Why is it so hard for them to take a vacation? Right. So I call that owner overload. They're basically overloaded with all the activities in the business. They're trying to handle sales, marketing, operations, financials, and people. 5 areas of business. I don't care, what kind of business you have. Those are the 5 areas of every single business. And, to Bill's point, when you can actually own your role as the owner and say, this is my role, this is what I'm supposed to do, and then let your team do what they're supposed to do, it's amazing how things happen. Now, this is definitely a shift in the way that typically shop owners would think, because a lot of shop owners, if you look, they were technicians themselves, and that's their comfort zone. But there's 3 areas that an owner should always be focusing on, and I believe that they should never let go of. They should definitely get help and they can delegate or outsource pieces of it. But the 3 areas that an owner should not let go of completely is messaging. What do they want their shop to stand for? What are those core values? Because when they have someone that's going to do their marketing, they want to make sure that that messaging is at the core, like of any of the marketing that they do. So it's very important for you to understand that, know that, and share that with your team, because you'll find that your core values, when your team aligns with those, it's a great place to be. Very good place to be. The second thing is that they never want to give up completely are the financials. You can have an accountant, of course, a bookkeeper, all of that, but you want to know and understand your numbers. You don't have to be the one that's doing the data entry, but you have to know and understand your numbers. And what happens is when you do know and understand them, you actually can look at those numbers and see the numbers that Bill's talking about as examples, right? And you could make better decisions, and you could make them quicker because you have the information, you understand the information. What I do is help my clients go from guesstimate financials to actionable financials.
You mean the cardboard box receipts financial thing?
Right? Well, I'm guessing that we're going to make money on this, or I'm guessing that there's money in the bank account, but at the end they find out that, well, wait a minute, I don't have as much money in my account as the accountant said I made. So what's the discrepancy there?
Well,
So
then I hope in April I have enough money to pay my taxes.
Yeah.
right,
Hey,
exactly.
yeah, you made $20,000 this year. Where is it?
Where is it? And right, like that's a huge question that I get asked commonly. And then the last part of this, the third part of it that I think is really important, is you always want to be building and nurturing relationships with your team, right? With your accounts, your customers, your suppliers, your vendors. Don't be a jerk to anyone. I know that we all have bad days, but you have to be the example of the actions, right? How you want your team to show up. So, if you want everybody to be treated with respect, well, you better be treating everyone with respect because they're watching you. And
Just
then
talk to a parts store person and ask them, have you gotten beaten up in the last hour? Just ask.
exactly. So be that owner that stands out, that's treating your suppliers and your vendors with respect. If you have an
Absolutely.
issue or whatever it is, have a conversation. Have your rep come in, have a cup of coffee with them, and really understand where the other person's coming from and collaborate and work together. Just like Bill was saying with that meeting that he was talking about. And I think that if an owner really owns their role and says, this is my role, then the best thing that can happen is you're giving your team the freedom, you're trusting them, give them the tools and the resources that they need. And one of the tools that I share with my clients, and it's a real eye opener, it's called RACI. I call it a RACI chart. RACI is RACI, and it's an acronym for responsible, who's accountable, who's to be consulted, and who's to be informed. So let's give an example. We were talking about technicians before, so that's a really good example. Who is responsible for getting the work out? We hand a ticket to a technician, and who's responsible for getting that vehicle out? The technician is. Who is accountable for those hours? Is it the actual technician, or do you have a foreman in charge? Every shop is going to have nuances. So-and-so, why didn't these technicians produce the hours this week? What was the challenge? What was the issue? Maybe the foreman is the person that's going to be accountable to that. So every shop may have a different, situation. Who's to be consulted? Maybe if there's an issue, they have to go to the front and say, we're having a problem with XYZ, or is there somebody that you can get on the phone with and they need to consult somebody who's doing the scheduling in the front. And maybe the owner just needs to be informed. But the owner's not the one that needs to be consulted. The owner's not the one that needs to be accountable. So what happens is when I talk about owners with different areas of their business, I say to them, who's responsible? Put their initials next to that. Who's accountable? Who's consulted and who's to be informed? And they look at their chart and they go, my initials are next to everything. Right. And that's a problem.
You know, Maryann,
they're not delegating. They're not empowering their team.
This is good. This is great stuff. But I got to make a comment. I made a comment just the other day, and I says, you know, I'm going to say this word, and it's going to sound like it's a heavy lift, but shop owners need to go to night school.
Mm-hmm.
Now, just bear with me in my thinking here, okay? Give me another minute. And I said this in front of a bunch of coaches. And I said, I know that sounds a little crazy, and I know there would be so much pushback. There's no, I don't have time. I got family. And I said, no, night school is to get hooked up with a coach. There's your night school. There's the education you need into all of your other stuff about, you know, the accountability piece, the responsibility piece. Go to night school, hire a business coach or a consultant, and spend that time during the day, an hour a week, whatever the arrangement is. But you've got to go to night school if you want to get into that professional league.
But don't take that literally. Because I don't want the shop owner that says, I'm so busy all day, I'd have to meet with you at 8:00 at night.
Okay, Bill, I'll stand corrected on that, or I'll put a footnote on my thing. Go to night school, but don't go to night school.
Well, I think there's a misconception with coaching. And I think a lot of times shop owners, you know, it's kind of like, oh no, do I have time for this now? It's another thing to add to my day, another activity to put on my plate. And again, they're just so overloaded with everything that's in their business. And they have this weighing on them that they're responsible for so much. So I think the challenge is, and I challenge shop owners that are out there that are considering coaching, is when you work with a coach, the idea, I mean, my philosophy is the idea is we're going to start subtracting from your day, not adding more to your day. That's the idea. I mean, that's my way of looking at it. Is the idea is for you to gain time so that
Right.
you're not the one that's doing everything, because a lot of the owners that I talk to, they are definitely wearing all the hats or many of the hats in their shop, and really the business isn't enjoyable when they're doing that. They're really burning themselves out. They're exhausted.
Yeah.
And they're making excuses for their family of why they can't be at things or go to things. And then when they do show up at those things, they're really not present. In the back of their mind, they're still going 24/7, worrying or thinking about that car that's on the lift that they, you know what I mean? Or, maybe a team member. They're always thinking about work. So they're not actually present. The other thing that I find is even if they're not wearing all the hats, they've started delegating some stuff, they're the go-to person. So now everyone they've made it so that everyone has to check in with them, and because they're having a hard time delegating. So the idea is not to add more to your day. That's like to me, that's the enemy of peak performance, is adding more and piling more. What you want to do is actually subtract things from your day, take things off your plate.
I'm trying
Man,
so hard to do that.
I like the way Maryann framed that, right? And I'm listening to her whole thing about the racy thing, and I'm like, man, this is perfect. This is just. And then she got into taking things off of their plate. Well, we did something for shop owners. We created the shop owner's job description.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, a lot of times when we start working with a client, we'll say, well, do you have job descriptions? Everybody that works for you has a job description. They know what they're responsible for, what tasks they perform. And they go, oh, no, we never, we didn't get that done. I'm like, well, you have a job description. Well, yeah, I kind of do everything, right? To Maryann's point. And it's like, yeah, but that's really not your job. And so we created this job description, and it's really short. Because what I want them to realize is all the things that they should not be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So the owner's job description doesn't say look up parts. It doesn't say write estimates. It doesn't say find out why the check engine light. So we're doing exactly like Maryann is saying. We're trying to take stuff off, right?
Yeah,
let's
exactly.
refine this to the things that the business needs you to be responsible for. And then the other thing that happens with that, once they understand what their job really is, you know what I love about it? You know what the people that work for them really love about it? They quit getting in their way. They quit getting in their way.
They quit getting in their way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
And
they
can
just
go.
yeah, they just
Exactly,
lifted
Bill.
they lifted the collar. The what are those collars in the jail? I don't know what they're called. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bill, I think it's a brilliant move to say, here's a new job description. And you know, you and I can discuss this, but let me start with this first initial paragraph. There's only 3 sentences here, and let me explain why. It's a brilliant move to move someone into the realm of night school coaching, and I'm kind of playing around with that as a metaphor. But my God, to me, so the first, what did Haas do for you on the first day you got together? He gave me a new job description. I fought him the whole way, man. But you know what? 3 months later, I get it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, I'm a shop owner myself, right? So I'm here, right? Put my coaching hat on, put my shop owner hat on. But after being in business for a few years, I kind of had this light bulb moment where, I mean, we're celebrating 25 years this year for our shop. Thank you.
Correct.
Thank you, Bill. But a few years in, I said, there's no way that we can keep going like this, right? My shop was profitable, but in my mind, it wasn't sustainable for us to keep going at that pace. Full transparency, it wasn't. And that's really how I came up with your shop needs to be profitable, sustainable, and enjoyable, because then you stop liking what you're doing when you feel like you're just exhausted. You're coming home and you're not fueled anymore. So I think that those 3 are equally important. But here's the thing. When a shop owner, to Bill's point, that job description and what I was talking about, you know, wearing all the hats or being the go-to person, when you can step away from that and take more off your plate and really empower your team with tools and resources, the meeting that Bill was suggesting, or the RACI chart, different things that you can give them to work with. The idea is now they have time to get out of the shop and say, I'm not going to come in on Wednesday morning. I'm going to be going to a chamber event. I'm going to be going to a networking event here. I'm going to be doing this. I'll see you at about 10 o'clock. Now they're building relationships, and that hour or 2 that they were at that event, and they go next month and they go the following month. So maybe they put 3 hours in, and before you know it, they ended up having coffee with a few people, and they ended up meeting some really cool people that are referring them, or they land an account that account is bringing in $20,000 a year to their shop or more. So those 3 hours, what do you think the ROI or the ROE, the return on effort was?
It's huge.
It's huge. So those are the activities that owners should be focusing on, because they can generate a lot of revenue.
And that's when you become strategic.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Absolutely.
When you're just in the day-to-day, it's the grind. And you'll never be strategic in the grind. And so when you get that break and you go to that BNI meeting, you go to that chamber event, you just go have lunch with a supplier, a vendor. Now you're becoming strategic. And that's how your business grows. Your business grows when you become strategic. I'll also share with you this, and this is something I did when I had my shop. You also have to have me time.
Mm-hmm.
Me time for me was every day at 2:00, unless I had a meeting or somewhere to be or something. At 2:00, you would find me in my office with my door closed. And the rule was this: leave him alone. The only reason for anybody to knock on that door between 2 and 3:00 was to let me know the building was on fire.
Mm-hmm.
That was my time. That was my time to process what had happened so far today, process what was going to happen after that, be a little more strategic, make notes, try to recapture things that I'd seen or experienced or thought about. I couldn't do all the things I was doing and then get home at 6:00 at night and go, oh, what was that I thought about earlier? It was gone.
Yeah.
Right.
You have
I
to
call
have
that thinking time.
you
But
have to-
absolutely,
That's
whatever
great.
you call it, you have to have that time.
and I
And you
don't
have
care
to
if
put it in
it's-
your calendar.
Yes. And,
Just
and
like you
maybe
did.
it's only 15 minutes. Maybe it's
Mhm.
30 minutes. But you got to do it.
Yeah.
And you have to have that discipline, right? And
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's a great point. A couple of we're gonna bring this to a close, but some of my thoughts, because I listen so intently to you guys. You're so good at what you do. The message is, if you leave for that morning piece or close the door at 2:00, Bill, is he's trusting us,
Mhm.
and we need to show that we can. And those are my two thoughts. And I think that helps build character at the other end. And you know what? Even if there was a bump in the road, it's recoverable, and there's learning going on. Because when someone, hey, this happened, it was on my watch, and you weren't here, and blah blah blah. Okay, let's fix this thing. And man, when people can learn from this stuff, they just become more valuable to you, but more valuable in their own rights to themselves. This was great. Thank you so much. Our June Coalition of Automotive Management Professionals, our camp call. We were here with great stuff, by the way. Wow. Little good stuff up front, Maryann. You laced in all the great leadership things at the end.
She did. She did a great job. I loved
We
it.
appreciate that. Maryann Croce from smallbizvantage.com, owner of Croce Transmissions, Norwalk, Connecticut. Can they get through to you through the website?
Yeah, smallbizvantage.com. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Bill Haas Performance Consulting at haasperformanceconsulting.com or BillH1317 at Gmail. This was great. Thank you for your wisdom, as always.
Maryann, tell Tony I said hello.
I will.
Thanks.
Yes.
Bye,
All right.
everybody.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Carm.
See you.
Bye.